Today, I am joined by Dr. Peter McCullough, one of the most published doctors in America, one of the most outspoken doctors against COVID, the shots, and even Dr. Fauci. Dr. McCullough, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
I've looked forward to this interview. I want to just let my audience know that the work that you and other doctors did, I believe, saved my life after I got an aggressive form of Delta COVID, which I believe came from vaccine shedding. So thank you so much for that. I want to jump in on this big press conference that President Trump, RFK Jr., Dr. Oz, and other doctors were a part of. But this announcement of autism seems to set the internet on fire. You have some that are saying, these guys are trying to burn down the medical establishment. We're all going to die. These old viruses and diseases will come back. Others are saying, thank you. Finally, we're getting to the bottom of this. They're saying stuff about mixing vaccines, toxic chemicals like mercury, aluminum, now Tylenol. What are your thoughts on everything that was announced yesterday?
Well, there were three major parts to that press conference, which I thought was historic. You know, Trump, the last time a president even mentioned autism was LBJ in the 1960s, believe it or not.
Wow.
And it's become an existential crisis. There's an autism epidemic. 3.2% of American kids have it. 27% of those who have autism, it's profound autism. They're severely mentally incapacitated, head banging, can't communicate, can't use the toilet. They're lifetime invalids, basically. I mean, this is a horrific situation. It's really, blossomed over the years. When I was a kid, it was 1 in 10,000. Now it's 1 in 31. So it's appropriate Trump comes out with this press conference with RFK, FDA Commissioner Mercury, and NIH Director Bhattacharya. Now, Trump took on the vaccines and made the case that it's probably too many vaccines on the kids. They should be spaced out. We should get all the mercury and aluminum out of the vaccines and give them separately. And then RFK and Mercury got into the data from a recent Mount Sinai and Harvard study by Prada and colleagues regarding Tylenol exposure during pregnancy. Now, this is all by retrospective surveys and the mother trying to recall years earlier, what she took during pregnancy. So it's not very exact information. But in the Prada study, 46 studies were reviewed. 27 of them showed an association between Tylenol use and future neuropsychiatric disorders. Only 8 studies actually reported on autism specifically. But importantly, 14 showed no relationship, and then 9 showed 27 showed a positive relationship, 9 were neutral, and then 14 actually showed Tylenol was protective. So among those with autism, as an outcome, 6 showed an association, 2 did not. So the Prada study is very mixed. But there was enough there to suggest, wait a minute, if a pregnant woman has a fever and takes Tylenol, maybe there could be an amplification effect. A leading cause of fever in a pregnant woman nowadays is taking vaccines. So we're back to vaccines again.
Interesting. Okay, I want to put something up here on the screen. I thought this did a really good job of, a picture's worth 1,000 words, but the pathway of regression. So vaccine exposure, fever, or amplified up to a seizure. They then give Tylenol, which depletes the body of glutathione, and then they notice regression in the child. Is this oversimplified, or do you think that this is an accurate representation of what might be happening?
This is putative. This comes from McCullough, our epidemiologist at the McCullough Foundation, and this is representing what was reported by Schultz and colleagues 2008. So keep in mind now, this is 17 years ago. The things that Trump and RFK and HHS is talking about, this has been out there for a long time. It's 2008. So Tylenol given when there's an MMR, measles, mumps, rubella vaccine seizure, when Tylenol is given, there was a 6-fold increased risk of autism. So it's probably this kind of encephalitic picture of the vaccine seizure, the inflammation in the brain, And then Tylenol can have this added effect. Tylenol really doesn't totally deplete the body of glutathione. The kids have normal, systems, and it's given for a brief period of time. So I think that's probably more theoretical. The only time glutathione is depleted is in when a childhood Tylenol overdose. And there we follow something called the Matthew Rumack nomogram. We actually give N-acetylcysteine back as a glutathione recharger. So it's enough there, though, to investigate for sure. I think they announced $50 million for autism research. I think that's far too low. The CDC has a $9 billion budget. We should be seeing prospective cohort studies and randomized trials in autism, in the hundreds of millions of dollars range. I mean, that should have been invested years ago. And then the final part to the press conference was folinic acid, also known as leucovorin. And there are two studies, and to quote them, the first one is 2016, again, 8 years ago. Fry and colleagues, 48 children from Little Rock, Arkansas, seemed to improve with folinic acid who had autism. And then Panda, Indian study, 78 children, again, seemed to improve. And then a meta-analysis of the two studies, a total of 103 children. So, folinic acid, leucovorin, is a prescription, but it's a generic. It's also available over the counter. I just checked Amazon. You just buy it on Amazon. Folinic acid. It's just the bioactive form of folate. Probably regular folate would work as well. The only reason why we use folinic acid in chemotherapy and rheumatologic diseases is because we use methotrexate, which impairs its conversion. The autistic children shouldn't have any problem with converting folate. But the bottom line is, it's game on for autism research, and it's game on for evaluating vaccine safety.
Okay. Yeah. Which I am all for. It's on a science that I want to believe in, but I also want to be safe, right? What about this idea, President Trump and RFK and even Dr. Oz, they kind of each touched on this a little bit, but the amount of vaccines that are given at the same time. If you give a child one shot and they have a really terrible reaction, you would go, okay, it was just this one shot. But if you give them medication and Tylenol and 5 shots all at once, so they don't have to come in for multiple well-child checkups, has there been any research on overloading children with these ingredients?
Around age 1, the current schedule is 16 things at once. And believe me, that whole bundle of 16 has not been studied. If I prescribe 16 drugs to a patient, I guarantee there's going to be a side effect. And you hit the nail on the head. If you give 16 things at once, you can't find out which one is causing the side effect, and you don't want to repeat it. Okay, so it's very important. Not all children can take the vaccine. Some vaccines cause rashes and allergic problems, and so they should be given separately. As a general principle, the vaccines are safer when they're given separately. When they're given later in life, they're safer and lesser in number. So I think there's going to be some effort to reduce the burden of vaccines on children.
Okay, that's interesting that, so I didn't know that it was 16 at once. I had a personal medical history several years ago. I got a staph infection, really aggressive in my nose, and they ended up putting me on a sulfa drug. Well, I didn't know that I was allergic to sulfa antibiotics. And I got this rash that you could literally see moving along my skin. It felt like I was being burned on the inside. And so I learned. But imagine if they had given me 16 things. We're just going to throw the kitchen sink at your nose and see what gets it. We would have never known. But instead they go, okay, you had this problem. You took a sulfa drug. You had this reaction. You're probably allergic to sulfa drugs. So just my own personal. Go ahead.
But to give you an example, just the 4 combination of measles, mumps, rubella, and varicella together, they were causing seizures in kids, which is terrifying for the parents. And so the current panel pushed that out to age 4 years, where the seizure rate is lower. But, no child should have to take a routine vaccine and end up with seizures. That's horrible.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Another thing I wanted to just get your thoughts on, members of Congress, almost none of them have a medical degree. They're not vaccinologists, and yet they come at RFK Jr. with all of this aggressive language, really well put together questions that not only try to make him look bad, but there's like a gotcha moment. Maybe they want a sound clip for Twitter or something. But I just have to wonder, with Big Pharma being the biggest lobby group in Washington, D.C., is there any chance they're behind the questions that these senators ask of RFK Jr.?
The senators do make these scientific proclamations. I watched Senator Maggie Hassan hold up a big stack of papers and say, the vaccines are safe. And she seemed completely unhinged. And, for instance, all of the investigations of the MMR vaccine and autism, do you know not a single study actually called up the parents to see if the kids actually got the MMR vaccine? Or not a single study actually examined the children to see if they really had autism or not and adjudicate it. I mean, it's very sloppy research. So for her to, try to assure America that there's no connection, it's just, and I think, part of the blame falls on RFK. He's a lawyer. He's not a doctor. They need to have a doctor, with medical authority sit with RFK and answer these questions. I mean, it's ridiculous to watch this happen. Non-physician to non-physician, we're not getting anywhere. Okay. I mean, if I was there, obviously that'd be the first thing I'd point out is I'd say, Senator, not a single one of those studies actually examined the children. We can't possibly know. I mean, that would just end that whole line of inquiry, right? I mean, so it just takes a doctor with medical authority. We don't have those in Washington right now. The current FDA commissioner doesn't have medical experience or authority. Neither does the NIH commissioner or Dr. Oz. When I mean medical authority, I mean doctors who actually know the information. They can cite the papers, like the type of work I do, and who can make very clear and definitive statements. During COVID, I was the only doctor who, going on national TV, could cite the information. I was the only doctor publishing on this. I published the first protocol on how to treat COVID-19. The American Journal of Medicine became the most widely used protocol in the world, endorsed by the Association of American Physicians and Surgeons. Now for the vaccines, I've published the first detoxification protocol, now in 2 journals. McCullough protocol, base spike detoxification, the most widely used approach in the world. I mean, these are significant contributions. I was just in Capitol Hill a few days ago, meeting with lawmakers, making presentations, and they know. I mean, we should have people at my level, guiding the country. I mean, sometimes it's difficult to watch all this.
Yeah. Oh, I imagine it's frustrating at times. Let me move from children up to adults. I saw this. The FDA just made a shocking admission. It never tested Pfizer and Moderna's COVID-19 vaccine for DNA fragments, relying on the word of the drug maker. It's an official at an official CDC meeting. Pediatric cardiologist Kirk Milhone demanded answers on why the shots remain on the market when independent labs found DNA contamination hundreds of times above the legal limit. Mm-hmm. So what does that mean? And then the one concerning for me is this SV40, because when I type that into ChatGPT, it says that this is a monkey virus that's known for causing turbo cancer.
Yeah, well, you nailed it. Both Pfizer and Moderna, multiple labs show it. They're contaminated with these DNA fragments that come off the E. coli in the messenger RNA manufacturing process. It's a very dirty process. So we have the simian virus 40, the promoter, the enhancer, the origin of insertion, the antibiotic resistance gene. We have fragments of DNA coding for spike fragments. And no country has actually opened the vials and inspect them for quality, purity, and contaminants. It's unacceptable. I mean, we inspect every drug, we inspect food. No inspection of these COVID vaccines, and we're 5 years into it, is completely unacceptable.
Yeah. So just hitting on the SV40, why would there be a monkey virus that in some people causes their body to, I guess, spontaneously have turbo cancer?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's called a proto-oncogene activator. So if we have cancer genes in us, if they don't get activated, we don't get cancer. And the simian virus 40 is a known proto-oncogene activator. That's the reason why it revs up the E. coli plasmid to produce a lot of messenger RNA. So it's a tool that's used to crank up production. By the way, SV40 was used in the production of the polio vaccine, and it contaminated the polio vaccine, that, believe it or not, during the years when I received it as a kid. And the Institute of Medicine issued a whole report on this, and they concluded by saying, we'll never know how much cancer there are in people my age based on taking the polio shots. But they ultimately cleaned up the polio shots and got the SV40 out of it. They haven't cleaned up the COVID shots.
Wow. Wow, that is scary. Did you know the US life expectancy peaked at 78 years in 2014? The global life expectancy is declining for the first time in 30 years because people are aging faster than ever before. This is most likely due to toxins in the air, chemical in our soil and food, and other external factors that are new to us. What most people don't know is that you can actually fight aging on a cellular level. Scientists discovered that kimchi actually slows the aging process of human cells. In a test tube study, when kimchi was introduced to human cells, it helped to protect them and delay aging on a cellular level. This powerful anti-aging science is something very important, and it comes from taking kimchi. And did you know that you can actually take kimchi in a capsule so you don't have to taste it? That's right. Each capsule delivers over 900 probiotic strains, plus antioxidants and enzymes that support digestion, metabolism, and skin health from the inside out. Kimchi 1 is also a natural microbial, helping your body fight off harmful bacteria, viruses, and even toxins while boosting immunity and energy. And unlike messy, smelly traditional kimchi, this is in an easy to swallow capsule. Best of all, Kimchi 1 is 100% made in the USA, all natural and non-GMO. It supports your gut, protects your cells, and helps you feel younger every day, which is why I've partnered with Kimchi over at Bright Core Nutrition. Now, today, you can get an exclusive offer by clicking the link below. Just use code Gardner for 25% off your entire order. Or for an even better deal, call my friends at Brightcore right now for 50% off plus free shipping. That's right, up to 50% off plus free shipping. Call them at 888-908-4425. Let me get your thoughts on this. Rarely do you see a president question something that they did in the past. I think it's a liability, maybe it's an ego, but I saw a tweet or a truth from President Trump where he questioned Operation Warp Speed. And I can tell he doesn't really want to, but the thing that was most concerning to me was he said, Pfizer's telling me this was a big success, but now I want scientists to tell me. Is Pfizer privately debriefing the president of the United States on this information? And of course, if they are, they're not going to say that they, hurt all of these people or vaccine damaged all of these people. Your thoughts on that?
Pfizer should not be the source of truth on the vaccine. I think Trump should debrief with Senator Ron Johnson, who's held multiple hearings with multiple hearing reports. He's had all the scientists testify, and then with Marjorie Taylor Greene on the House side. So he has two allies. He can get debriefed there on vaccine safety. The short answer is the vaccines aren't safe. They were never safe. And, I personally would like to see a strong president. A strong president. Remember, strong people can admit when they're wrong.
Yeah.
Admitting when you're wrong, because we're all wrong about things. It's a matter of the strong people can admit they're wrong, and people who are kind of weaker and less secure, they just can't admit they're wrong. So last night on Monday Night Football, the quarterback for the Detroit Lions, there was a play, and the player was running for the end zone, and he was telling the player to get down to try to kill the clock, and the player ran into the end zone and got another score. Okay. And so they asked about it after the game, Jared Goff. They asked him, they said, well, why were you telling him to go down? And he goes, listen, I made a mistake. I just made the wrong call. I'm glad he ran into the end zone. And I said, that's somebody who's strong. They can admit they're wrong. Okay. So, if I was Trump, I would just say simply, I was wrong about the COVID vaccines. I was greatly misled by Anthony Fauci and those pushing the vaccines. And if I was Trump, I'd say, listen, I'm going to order Kennedy and Mercury, get these things off the market. Let's end the vaccine program, and then let's start an investigation into what's happened, and let's get some grants going so we can study the best way to treat those who've been injured by the COVID vaccines. That's what I would do if I was Trump, and I think the country would applaud. His popularity ratings would skyrocket.
Yeah, I agree, because our RFK hinted that Operation Warp Speed was probably the right move, but then the vaccine companies were withholding data because they saw how much money was on the line. But if you swap out a vaccine group that makes, let's say, $100 billion talking to the president about the success of a vaccine, let's now swap that out for Philip Morris, right, the cigarette company, and they're privately going behind the lawmakers to the president and saying, Philip Morris believes that cigarettes do not cause cancer, right? Like, that's my worry, is that if he's being debriefed by Burla over at Pfizer or Moderna directly, he's not going to get an unbiased opinion, because they're not going to cut off their nose despite their $100 billion face.
Oh, I think that's a very good analogy. And yesterday, Trump, I think, showed, in a sense, his humility. He couldn't pronounce acetaminophen. So, I mean, Trump really does have a lack of medical sophistication. As bright as he is in business dealings and negotiations and geopolitics and politics, his weak area is medicine. There's no doubt about it. And so he showed it yesterday. Yeah. And so, I think he'd be well advised, get a strong doctor in there to advise him, and he needs to extricate himself out of this. Operation Warp Speed was great in terms of the winner for Operation Warp Speed was the monoclonal antibodies. He should take credit for those. There were 6 of them. They were always safe, always effective. I used them extensively in my practice. And he should de-emphasize the vaccines and let them fade out and be taken off the market and the vaccine campaign. Listen, there's many ways to play this. And he doesn't have to worry about losing political points. He's in the office. He's a one-term president. I think he should just, go for it. Do what's right for the country.
Yeah. No, I love that. You make a great point. I remember covering on my show that Florida was using the monoclonal antibodies and their numbers were dropping and everyone was happy. And then Biden banned them from using those. Yeah. And wouldn't you know it, their numbers spiked so that they could say a red state has an out of control outbreak of the virus. I mean, the correlation was like so obvious to a guy who makes a news show in his basement.
They made enough monoclonal antibodies to treat every American, and they couldn't get it to the, in Dallas, we were scrambling to get doses. They should have outfitted all the nursing homes. Every patient who got sick went to the ER. They should have been treated with monoclonal antibodies. Sadly, only 15% of people admitted to the hospital got monoclonal antibodies, but those who got them, they survived. Those who didn't get the monoclonal antibodies, some of them died on the ventilator, and it was terrible. So the monoclonal antibodies, Operation Warp Speed should be about the monoclonal antibodies. That was a miraculous set of discoveries. And then it should de-emphasize the vaccines.
All right. I love that. Okay. I saw an announcement. It didn't get a lot of attention, but over on the Vaccine Safety Board, I believe it's called ACIP, 12 out of 12 people voted to downgrade the COVID vaccine, saying we no longer universally recommend this to people. Was that the right move? And why didn't that get more attention? Is it because they don't want it out there that, hey, you might have stuff in your body from an old shot that we now say don't go and get?
Well, it fell short of just not recommending them at all, or the ACIP doesn't have the power to pull them off the market, but they don't have the broad endorsement now that they used to. And the CDC won't tell us how many people are taking boosters. Every time I go into the pharmacy, I look around, I don't see anybody taking boosters. Although my neighbor stopped me the other day and was proud to tell me he has just taken his booster. So a healthy person like him should be on number 7. someone with immunodeficiencies would be on number 10. That's unheard of as an adult. These are genetic products. We've never taken genetic products in the human body before. The safety track record is horrendous. We have over 19,000 American deaths with these vaccines, 1,000 right in the vaccine center, another 1,000 the next day. This is horrendous. There've been several hundred who have died this year. Americans should be outraged. The recent Rasmussen poll determined that 56% of Americans, believe the vaccines have caused large numbers of deaths, and they're right.
Yeah, that is a large number. All right, let me get you out on this. I appreciate your time. I know how busy you are. Do you believe what President Trump and RFK did yesterday? Do you believe that they are building a case to remove vaccines completely from American medicine, or is it just building a case to try to repeal the 1986 liability protection?
I think it's something different. I think where they're heading is what's called risk stratification. That is, it's not the same number of vaccines, the same schedule for every person, that it's going to be individualized. So, children with pulmonary impairment, respiratory problems like cystic fibrosis, they get the respiratory vaccines. Children with, hematologic or splenic problems, they get the encapsulated organism vaccine. There's 13 studies now showing a healthy child born today is healthier with no vaccines at all. Healthier. So Trump made that point over and over again, like the Amish. They're the healthiest of all. They don't take any vaccines. So I think where we're heading is risk stratification. It'd be a bonus if we rescind the 1986 Vaccine Injury Compensation Act. It'd be a bonus to get pharmaceutical advertising off TV. It would be huge if we can do nationwide what Joe Ladapo in Florida wants to do, and that is eliminate all school, work, and military mandates for any vaccine. We should never be forced to take something in our body in order to go to school. None of these vaccines are sufficiently compelling to do that. None of them are safe enough to do that.
Okay. Well, again, thank you for your time. But just over the last 5 years, I know they tried to upend your life, ruin your career, your reputation. You're one of the most published doctors in America.
Well, Stephen, let me share with this is a new publication, my new book, Vaccines, Mythology, Ideology, and Reality. This just made the New York Times bestseller list for hardcover nonfiction. And it's a 300-year gripping, character-driven story about the development of vaccines and how they became accepted based on religious faith and not based on science. That's the reason why people are so crazy about vaccines, because they're not driven by the scientific process. They're driven by this irrational, sometimes delusional belief system regarding vaccines.
Okay. Well, I'm going to put a direct link to that down below, as well as your X account, so that people can follow you online. That's amazing. And that when did that come out?
Just came out a month ago.
Oh, amazing. Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to put a direct link right at the top of this video for people.
Yeah, people are going to pick up a copy. You can read it in a couple days. And we started out in 1721 in Boston with Cotton Mather and variolation. We take it through Edward Jenner and Louis Pasteur and Sabin and Salk and on through the vaccine development into the COVID vaccines. But I think we make the compelling case that, fear of infectious diseases, bold, unsupported claims by vaccine developers, a lot of money and a lot of power, you mix them together, you get vaccine ideology. And with this, by the way, there's an entire history of corruption in this field. And it fits with what we saw with the COVID-19 vaccine campaign.
Yeah, well, I'm personally hoping that they can repeal the pardon of Dr. Fauci, because I believe he should at least come forward and answer what really went on. So, Dr. Peter McCullough, thank you so much. You're a national treasure. We'll have you on in the future. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.